We know the coastal grandmother trend is hot in fashion right now, but Sharon is going to show us how it translates to home decor, too.
The homeowner drew inspiration from the architectural style of the house and the beach town where it's situated, so it has a real nice beachy, cottagey vibe. Now the home is newly built, but I really love how she brought in furnishings that really nod to the past, so it has a bit more of an eclectic feel. She has a wonderful eye for mixing and matching, so most of the furnishings are heirloom pieces she got from her mom or grandmother, and of course some great vintage finds as well. Now the tall windows and the French doors really inspired the color palette. They bring the garden and the outdoors in. The ceiling and the floors are finished in a nice warm casual pine, which is so fitting for this space. And the walls are in Hancock green. This is from Benjamin Moore's historical collection, and it's a nice fresh backdrop for all of the colors and finishes going on in the space. Now I love that she continued that green color story into the kitchen, but went bolder with Fairmont green on the island, the lower cabinets, and then for that statement range hood cover. I love how all the copper details really pop against the green. The apron sink, we've got the terracotta floor tile, and even down to the brass hardware. It brings so much warmth, but it really is the details that pull the whole cottage style together in this space.
Okay, Sharon, everything old is finding is new again, right?
Yes.
As they like to say, and it's really about mixing the old with the new, right?
Absolutely, Trace, and I think all the trends right now have an element of old with the new, and I think that's what keeps it fresh. So, you know, I was thinking about this. If 20 years ago someone said, "Oh, Sharon, that room is just vibing granny," I'd be like, "Oh my God." I would be a little horrified. Whereas now, that is awesome. I think it's really, we really care a lot more about that nostalgia right now.
We do, and I think, you know, as the world continues to propel itself into I don't know what's happening on this planet, I think people want that security and that nostalgia. Like, I want to be in the space my mother's in, my grandmother's in, my ancestors are in, and you want pieces that you can sort of familiarize yourself with and ground yourself.
And ground yourself.
We need that, right? So we
Absolutely.
know in fashion we've been talking about coastal grandma, which is this very cool sort of Diane Keaton, you know, esque style. What would you call, like, what are we calling this decor? Trend?
I wouldn't call this coastal grandma, although there's definitely an element to it. But I think grandmillennial is a good term that I've heard.
Grandmillennial, I like that.
Right? Like, oh.
Yes, I love that.
And granny chic is kind of fun too.
I like that too.
It gives me a visual.
Yeah.
And I think that, but at the same time, those are kind of fun hashtags.
Yeah.
But I think there's more to it than that. I think it's definitely a timelessness. There's something about this new traditional or modern take on tradition that we're all feeling comfortable with. So I think that, you know, the doilies and the tea cozies and all that, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But I think it's really about just making the space comfortable and personalizing it, and it's very attainable.
Yes.
Like, this look is very attainable. You don't have to go out and buy everything new. So you can, you can personalize it yourself.
That's right. Pick the pieces you want that you've maybe been putting aside or taken up to the cottage. That stuff's going to be in your house now.
Exactly.
So we need to start with the color.
Yes.
There's a lot of drama going on here, but in the nicest possible way. So talk about the color palette.
Okay, well, that's a good point, Trace. With color and with the style overall, it's very maximal. So I like to think of color as a tool that can kind of rein things in. So I actually really only use 3 colors. I've got a cool green, I've got a cool blue, and then I've got some warm gold. So try and keep that element of it simple. But with the color that really drove it for me, the catalyst was walking into Cornerstone Home Interiors.
Yes.
And I absolutely fell in love with the sofa. I just wanted to dive into it.
It looks comfy.
It's so comfy. Certainly it's the color, but it's also the texture and the shape and everything about it. So I think this piece really was the catalyst for the color palette. So I knew I wanted green. I brought Polar Jade, a cool green, onto the wall.
Beautiful.
Isn't it pretty?
Yeah, really nice.
And that is in a matte finish. So again, playing with sheens is always great with color. But then I wanted to stick more with the cool and a blue. Classic pairing, blue and green, right? So we've got some blue in here, but then I always like to balance it out with some warmth. So we've got warm in the color of the rug and some of the wood and certainly the gold accessories. So again, balance those colors.
It all works well together, and as I walked into the studio, I wanted to sit in here. So there's something about the comfiness and the coziness that draws you to it, especially at this time of year. We need to talk a little bit about form and shape
Yes.
because we're seeing a transition with that right now happening with
Absolutely,
decor.
and it's more traditional. And to your point about coziness, there's
Yeah.
nothing cozier than a rounded back sofa.
Yes.
And I think the structure is really important with the form, so the tufting really helps.
Mm-hmm.
Again, sort of more ornate shapes, but you
Mm-hmm.
also want to bring it in a little bit, not have everything ornate and too curvy. But I
Yeah.
like round shapes, but it can be simple and a bit more modern like this table, so you kind of want to mix things in.
Yes.
And then also the the streamlined shape with the rattan, but pattern is also really important. Huge with this look.
For me, I would look at this and the pattern, I would be scared that I would not know how to temper myself.
Yes.
Because you have a lot of patterns going on here, but it works.
It works, and I think you can go crazy if you want to. For me, I either like to have pattern in all of my things or on my wall. So I think in this case, you could do stencil wallpaper. I went with solid on the wall. You can actually even get, look at this, you can get a little bit of pattern even with your
That's a nice light.
Right?
That's cute.
Again, another beautiful piece from Cornerstone. You kind of got that antique feel, but pattern can be in the way that you apply your art, the way that you curate your art on the wall can give a pattern. I've got this beautiful pattern in the rug. Go crazy with your cushions. Like I say, mix the cushions, mix the patterns. You've got that real contemporary big print. You've got the needlepoint with the small flowers. I've got paisley. I've got this really fun pattern in the tray. So again, I think really have fun with those small elements that, again, you can always like simplify them and throw them in another bedroom if it's too much for you.
Absolutely. You also have some painted woods, natural woods, so that's also a way that you've really sort of mixed things up.
Mix and match. You don't want matchy-matchy for this look. There's nothing matchy-matchy. Break them up. So paint it, keep some things simple, and then, embellish it. Go crazy with your styling, too.
Very nice. You went crazy, but you also, you had some restraint. So the whole thing looks beautiful. Sharon, thank you so much. You're going to come back later. And later, she's going to show us how to take a new piece of furniture and give it a vintage look, even if it's not vintage